Hello, glad to be with you today. My name is Varieties. Tillman. I'm the peanut breeder with the University of Florida, and I just want to go over a little bit of our varieties with you today. We have three runner-type varieties that are in the market now. One is Flowrun 331, the other is Terraformer 297, and a new one I'll talk about a little bit today is Flowrun T61, and also a Virginia type that we released a couple of years back is called Walton. So a little bit about Terraformer 297. It is a large runner. It has about 550 to 600 seed per pound. It is medium maturity in Florida under irrigation. Has had excellent yield potential. I'll show you some of the data from Florida and some from your Georgia statewide variety tests as well. It looks really good. Grades have been also very good with this variety in the upper 70s for TSMK. It's moderately resistant to white mold and looks pretty good with that disease. It is susceptible to leaf spot and has pretty good tolerance to tomato spotted wilt. We've seen a definite resurgence in tomato spotted wilt over the past 2 or 3 years in our sites, research sites, and it's continued to hold up well to that disease. The other one is Flowrun 331. It is a smaller seed size. It has about 650 to 700 seeds per pound, so a little bit of money savings there in terms of the planting. It also has very good seed vigor. We've just had excellent results with this variety, even in tough conditions. Planting conditions with it coming up well. It's also a medium maturing variety in under irrigation in Florida, and I will say it does very well in non-irrigated conditions. I'll show you that data in a minute as well. The yield potential has been very good in Florida, especially in those disease situations where it's been stressed a lot. Tends to do really well in those conditions. Grades in the mid-70s as well, 75, 76% TSMK. Has some good tolerance to white mold. Is moderately susceptible to late leaf spot and moderately susceptible to TSWV. Not a variety we'd recommend planting early because of its that spotted wilt, but does really well, especially if you're planting it in the May time frame. The new one here is Flowrun T61. I put the T in there because it has some very good tomato spotted wilt tolerance. It is sort of in between seed size between the 297 and the 331, not quite as small as the 331, not quite as large as the 297, about 600 to 650 seeds per pound. It is also medium maturity, maybe tending towards a little bit on the later side, depending on when it's planted. We had some planted this year in late April, had some really severe spotted wilt around it, but it did really well. In that case, because of the cooler weather up front, it was a little bit longer in maturity, but I expect that will be really a medium maturity when you plant it in May time frame when the conditions are really good for rapid emergence and quick early growth. Yield potential has been similar to Georgia 06G in Florida and Georgia. Looks good there. Grade is in the upper 70s. It's been around 76 to 78% TSMK in our tests. It does have moderate resistance to white mold, moderate susceptible to leaf spot, and a good TSWV tolerance as well. That, again, is one of the areas that it excels in. I will say it's a smaller vine. The 297 and 331 have a pretty large runner-type vine that gets very tall. That can cause problems in some situations where vine growth is a little excessive. This one tends not to do that, so it has done well in twin row situations and has yielded really well in those conditions. The Walton is a high oleic Virginia type where we don't have as much seed of this one. I'll say we produced about 50 acres of foundation seed of the T61 last year. With Walton, we're going a little slower on it, not as much demand quite for the Virginia types, but it is a high oleic Virginia type that we're targeting for commercial production, primarily in the VC area, Virginia, Carolinas, where most Virginias are grown, but it does really well here in the deep southeast as well. We've grown it in our sandy soils down in central Florida, all the way up into the panhandle where we are in Mariana there, and it does really well. So if it's a grower's looking for a boiling type peanut, this would be a good one. Yield potential has been similar to Bailey in the Virginia, Carolina areas, even better than Bailey in our conditions. Grades, of course, for a Virginia are a little bit lower, in the lower 70s, but that's a good TSMK for a Virginia type. Has a high percentage of ELK and super ELK, which are factors for Virginia trade, meaning that they will be more valuable, and a high percentage of fancy pods. To be a Virginia type, by the USDA definition, it has to be 40% fancy pods, and it exceeds that. It's probably around 80 to 85% fancy pods in that case. So I do think that there's a potential here for growers who might have a specialty market or for boiling in the southeast here. little bit of data. This is from our Florida statewide variety test over the 3-year period from 19 to 21, just to show you how the varieties performed. Here we have the grade at the top graphed against this axis and the yield over here on the left axis. And our top yielding variety over that 3-year period and even before has been 331. 331 has really good yield potential. I think some growers have really been able to realize that, and some maybe not so much because of the vine growth. I think it could be a candidate because of that, for growth regulators to slow the growth down a little bit. But in our tests under irrigation, it's been the highest yielding, and under non-irrigated situations here in this orange bar, it's also been very good. And you can see here where 297 ranks as well. So in that top group of high yielding varieties, and grades are pretty good too. That's above 70% grade. So very good performance out of 297 and 331 in our tests. And this is from your data here, the statewide variety test, the official test at the University of Georgia. And again, you see that the 331 irrigated and non-irrigated was very good in those years of this test from 18 to 21. And I went back to 18 because in 2020 there was limited number of locations and only one location, I think. So I added in that other year just to give it a little bit more data in there. And you can see how it performs really well. I think some excellent potential there for 331. 297 is right in the mix as well in terms of its potential. We work with Dr. Benneman every year here in Tifton. He does a screening of our varieties for disease tolerance, and this is the data from his test from 2019 and 2020, showing that T61 under pretty severe conditions for spotted wilt, leaf spot, and white mold was among the highest yielding commercial varieties that he had in the test in those 2 years. And you see where 297 and 331 also ranked. So very good performance under those conditions where disease is a problem here in Georgia. And with that, these are the supporters of our work. Our Florida Checkoff supports the National Peanut Board, NIFA, and the American Peanut Shellers, and I want to thank them for their support. If any questions, I'd be glad to try and answer them.